incurable diseases. Rasul was a great man. One day, two brothers bring their sister, who was mentally disabled, bring her before Rasul, the worshipper. They say to him that our sister is mentally disabled, we ask you to cure her. He said, okay, but it will take time, because I have to supplicate, I have to recite special recitations, special verses from the Torah, from the Bible. He said, okay, they trusted him, he was a worshipper. They left their sister in his house. Now this was the first sin, because khalwa, to stay alone in one house, while people don't have access to the house, or to that place, to that location, is haram, is forbidden. See, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطَوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ. Don't follow in the footsteps of shaitan. He doesn't say don't embrace the deception of shaitan. Don't be allured by shaitan. He says don't follow in the footsteps of shaitan. Because one sin will lead to the other. Our traditions tell us that we're discouraged to sit in a location that was occupied by the opposite sex, especially if they're young, if it's still warm. Because this will stimulate the desire. This was the first sin. She's alone with him in the same house. Now he's worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but shaitan comes into the picture. He says to him, Rasul, this is your only opportunity. You're a worshipper. You can never commit the sin ever again if you don't take this opportunity. So he tries to deceive and he begins to think about it. And this is the second thing. Second sin. You shouldn't think about a sin because it's not an option. Close the door straight away. فَإِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ لَا يَفْتَحُ بَابًا. Because the devil, the shaitan will never open the door once it's open. But if it's open, the shaitan will enter inside your mind, inside your heart. He deceives him. He says to him that she doesn't understand, he can commit the sin. She doesn't know what's happening. She's mentally disabled. He commits adultery with the woman. Now after he finishes, the shaitan comes in again, telling him that she could become pregnant. And this would be the biggest scandal. You're a worshipper. What will the people say about you? What should I do? The shaitan gives him the solution again. And it's a sin after a sin. He says to him, kill her. Get rid of her. But because he committed the first sin, now he's got the audacity to commit the second one. If you say no to the first sin, shaitan will not dare to entice you to commit a bigger sin. But because he said yes to the first sin, he'll say yes to the next one. And he eventually kills the woman. She dies. What should I do? Bury her. He buries her. 3 days later, the brothers come back. Where's our sister? She died. She became ill and she died. Why didn't you inform us? Because it's recommended that the burial takes place quickly. That's not the case. The shaitan comes to the brothers, telling them that she was killed. That's a suspicious case. And the shaitan back then was able to become manifest before them. He informs them of the location of her burial. They go there, unearth the body, the corpse, and they realize that she was killed. Now he's about to be executed. He's about to be hanged when shaitan comes to Rasul again. Rasul, I can save you now. All you have to do is do sujood for me. Prostrate before me. How should I do that? I mean, I'm about to be hanged. I can't do sujood. All you have to do is blink for me with the intention of doing sujood. I'll accept that. He does sujood to shaitan. He's hanged and he died while he lost his faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, committed murder and committed adultery. So this is something that we cannot cancel. This is something that we cannot remove from our lives. It's a reality. Imam Sajjad alayhi salam says in one tradition that don't be deceived by the surface, by the appearance of someone appearing to be mu'min. Because such a person might pray and fast, pray on time, fast properly, but once he or she has the chance to make money through illegitimate means, they would go ahead for it. So maybe they fail the test with regards to money. Or even if they pass this test, once they have the opportunity to satisfy their lower desires, their sexual desires, illegitimately, they would go ahead for it. They would fail this other test. And the tradition says that we have two kinds of people. A kind that don't commit the sin because simply the opportunity isn't right. They can't commit the sin because of the family environment, because of the presence of people that he's ashamed of. But once such people see the opportunity, they would take it. They would seize it straight away. These people on the Day of Judgment will be, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about them, that these people, وَقَدِمْنَا إِلَى مَا عَمِلُوا مِنْ عَمَلٍ فَجَعَلْنَاهُ هَبَاءً مَنْثُورًا. All their good deeds, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will turn them into ash. They will be dispersed on the Day of Judgment. Why? Because they didn't have piety in their hearts. They didn't have piety in their hearts. But there are people that know, they have real piety. It's not because of the opportunity of committing the sin, no. They can always commit the sin, but they abstain from committing it. Sometimes they can commit the sin, but even when they can, they abstain from committing the sin. Yusuf alayhi salam was a prophet of God. God sent his revelations to him when he was in the well. He was only 6 years old. He moves in the palace of the king's wife, Zulaykh. He's 6 years old. He remains in the palace until he reaches the age of puberty. When he is 16 years old, he is filled with desire. The king's wife tells the woman in charge of her makeup, and in charge of her dressing and clothing and whatnot, says to her that I want to wear makeup in a way that I would look very attractive and nice, so that Yusuf would be attracted to me. She says to her, what are you talking about? You're the most beautiful woman in town. She says, but the problem is, Yusuf has been in my palace for 10 years and he's never looked at me in the face. Never. In his life. The sinful gaze is an arrow shot by shaitan. It's a poisonous arrow. It will pierce your skin, go into your blood, and it will poison your blood. كَمْ مِن نَظْرَةٍ أَوْرَتَتْ حَسْرَةٍ. When you make the sinful gaze, the desire is stimulated, it will be like wildfire in your hearts. And you will dedicate your life in pursuit of satisfying this desire. All your life will revolve around satisfying this desire. And we see sometimes youngsters that dress in a way to impress the opposite sex. Their hairstyle is to impress the opposite sex. All they do in their life is to impress the opposite sex. Their life revolves around this desire. So she says to her that the best thing is to make a room made from mirrors, the walls from mirrors, the roof made from mirrors, and then ask him, because he was a slave, he was a servant in her house, ask him to enter inside the room. Wherever he looks, he will see the reflection of Zulaykha alayhi salam. And this is the first step. The desire is stimulated. After the desire is stimulated, all you need to do is get together and the sin will be committed. So she asks him to go inside the room. He goes inside, suddenly he realizes that it's a trap. Because everything is made from mirrors except for the floor, because it would be slippery. So he casts his head down. She comes close to him. She says to him, Yusuf, unzur ilay, look at me. He says to her, akhsha ala basari al-ama. I fear that I will become blind if I look at you. She says, Yusuf, ma atyab rihak. Your scent is so nice. He says to her that if you come to me after my burial, 3 days after I'm dead, you would run away from my smell. Yusuf, ma ahla wajhak. You look so nice. Your eyes are so nice. He says to her that if you look at me after I die, and my body is decomposed, you would run away from me. He not only is not falling in the trap, he tries to discourage her. And now even Yusuf, the prophet of God, He doesn't commit the sin eventually. But he tells Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَإِلَّا تَصْرِفْ عَنِّي كَيْدَهُنْ أَصْبُ إِلَيْهِنْ. If you don't help me, if you don't assist me, if you don't support me, I will commit the sin. Even Yusuf alayhi salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sealed the doors of sins, but He opened another door. It's called the door of marriage. That's why some of our traditions tell us that Qasim ibn al-Hasan, before he was killed on the day of Ashura, Imam al-Hussein married him to his daughter Sukayn. Because the tradition says, شِرَارُ مَوْتَاكُمْ الْعُزَّى. The worst amongst you are the ones that die while they're single. شِرَارُ مَوْتَاكُمْ الْعُزَّى. The eve of Ashura, the Imam delivered the sermon. He first of all told them to leave him. But when he realized that the companions are dedicated to remain with him until they die, he then delivers another sermon, saying that if that's the case, then let me tell you something. First of all, you are the best of all companions. I am not aware of individuals, of companions, of someone more loyal and more faithful and better than you. إِنِّي لَا أَعْلَمُ أَصْحَابًا خَيْرٌ وَلَا أَبَرٌّ مِنْ أَصْحَابِي. And then he tells them that you're going to be killed tomorrow. Everyone's going to be killed. Even my 6-month-old infant will be killed. Suddenly Qasim ibn al-Hasan, who was only 13 years old, he was sitting in the tent of the men, not the women or the children, at the very back. He listened tentatively to the sermon of the Imam. Then he said, Ya Am, wa ana fi man uqtal. Will I be killed tomorrow? And now, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, before telling him whether he's going to be killed tomorrow or not, he asks him this question. كيف الموت عندك? How do you find death? He's only 13 years old. And now we should make a comparison here between what Ismail did, son of Ibrahim, who was a prophet of God. Qasim is not a prophet of God. But the reason why we relive the incident, the event of Ashura, is because of the parables that were set by the Quran, because of the examples, the role models that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about in the Quran. He says that when Ibrahim told his son that I saw a dream that I am slaughtering you, and a dream of a prophet is a revelation, what was Ismail's response? He said, أَبَا إِفْعَلْ مَا تُؤْمَرْ سَتَجِدُنِي إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهِ مِنَ الصَّابِرِينَ. Do what you're told, and inshallah I will persevere. I will display patience. This was his response. Now let's look at the stance that was taken by Qasim alayhi salam. كيف الموت عندك? How do you find death? He said, فيك يا عم, with you, for your sake, أحلى من العسل, sweeter than honey. The Imam said, what do you think of death? He said, if I am killed with your Abu Abdullah, then it's sweeter than honey. Now, this is why we commemorate the tragedy of Ashura. This is why we talk about Qasim ibn al-Hasan. Our youngsters should understand and should know what happened on the day of Ashura, so that they apply these teachings on their lives. It's not worth it to commit sins. It's not worth it to be deceived by the shaitan. Why, you have the examples of Qasim ibn al-Hasan. He's our role model. He's your role model. Which is the biggest sacrifice. Why do you need money? Why do you need wealth? Why do you need prosperity? To live right? He's sacrificing his soul. He's making the biggest sacrifice. On the day of Ashura, when most of Imam Hussein's children, brothers, were killed, Qasim ibn Hasan comes to the Imam. He says to him, Amma, Amma, I can't take it anymore.